Welcome back to A Faith That Will Not Fail. This is a study of 10 different practices that we can incorporate into our life, even in the hard parts of life, to make sure that our faith remains steady. We are in week 6 for us, but in chapter 8, looking at wonder, and day 2 is all about the classroom of the world. I'm Rustin.
I'm Tammy.
And I'm Mike.
And we're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us.
You know, the lead off for this chapter is the quote by Corrie ten Boom, and it's,
You love it.
I absolutely do. And it says, this is what the past is for. Every experience God gives us, every person he puts in our lives is the perfect preparation for the future that only he can see. You know, and knowing her story of, you know, hiding and taking care of people, then ending up in a concentration camp during World War II, man, you know, the classroom of the world was real for her. Absolutely. You know, and taking care of those people, and then ending up in the concentration camp, and then being lucky enough to get out. And then she preaches on this stuff, you know, forgiveness. And it was, the story always blows me away when I think about it and read it, about how she actually had to forgive a guard that
Was a part of killing her family.
was a part of killing her family. Yeah.
And she chose to forgive the guard.
Yeah. And so this classroom of the world, like, yes, I think she gets it.
Or that God chose for her to forgive, right? I think there's this, because I think without that moment of awakening, she wouldn't have. But I think that's the beauty of thinking of the world as God's classroom to wonder. I think often when we think about discipleship, we think about, well, I got to get my small group, and I got to read my Bible every day, and I got to do my devotional, and we think about these things, but we seldom talk about the value of being in the world and being fully awakened to what God is doing day to day in our midst at every moment in your life. Like when I hear from you and your stories, what is God saying to me in that? When I hear from you and your stories, what's God telling me about who God is in this space? And awakening ourselves to that practice, I think, is one of the beautiful pieces that she brings in this week of expanding our discipleship vocabulary and our imagination.
Yeah, I really liked actually the example that you just brought up, Corrie ten Boom, because we don't all have that big of a story. And I particularly like that Kushat brings that up too, that this isn't about comparison. It's not about, oh, their suffering is worse than mine, so I shouldn't be feeling mine. But there is something in the shared suffering and letting what's going on in the world around us shape us. Just this past week, I attended a class on a health issue that my family is facing, and I turned on the camera, and in doing so, someone from our lives like noticed me there and then messaged me afterwards, and so we were able to join each other in prayer.
That's awesome.
Afterwards. And so it wasn't about that I'm suffering alone anymore. And so there's something to being in suffering with other people and being able to name, like, this is hard for me, and be sharing that suffering with one another.
Yeah, I love her quote that while preoccupied by circumstances that keep us awake at night, we lose perspective on the world and the people around us. Right?
And we're not the only ones in it.
We're not the only ones in it. And one of the things I want to caution about this, because the book's really built around suffering, right? It's built around her cancer experience. It's built around that. And you may not be having, as you're watching us through this, having suffering moments right now. I'm not. But we have people in staff who are, right? You've seen by this point that our beloved Tim has a form of cancer, and so we're walking alongside that and being present to that, and that's beautiful, and we should do that. But there's also this piece of, what does it look like to be rooted in the world as your classroom, even in a space of not suffering? What God might be trying to teach you in the joyful moments as well as the suffering moments of people you're in a relationship with. And so whichever way, we invite you to join us in that. Tim, you want to give us the practice for today?
Sure. The practice for today is to contemplate the world outside your window. That could be the wider world across the universe, or it could just be next door. So contemplate and then write down how the classroom of the world gives you fresh strength and wisdom for what you're facing today. If you want to write it down, you can, and then pray into that.